I'm sorry, if you see a black mass in your hallway in the middle of the night and you turn the light on, if the black mass is still there, then you have a haunting. If not, it could be a number of shadow things.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't buy the turn off the lights.
Yeah, when you're coming awake, you're just coming to the point of between sleep and awake. That's when I have a lot of my psychic experiences. I pay attention to those, and I make a note of it, and I running it through my rational filter after that, I can decide whether or not it was something prominent or not. But sometimes you can have those waking dream states where your body is still paralyzed. The chemistry or chemical running through the body hasn't worn off yet, and you're still stuck.
Right.
And you can have a waking dream and not even really realize you're having a waking dream.
Now, I have been with mediums before, and it's really well. It's really interesting because supposedly there was a little girl in this house, and me, her, and guy from Port, Mark, was sitting in the front looking down the hall, and I'm just asking questions, and everything, and all of a sudden the medium says, "She's standing right in front of you." I said, "Oh, okay. Let me get my camera here and see if I can take a picture." And a few seconds, Mark says, "Honey, can Henry take your picture?" And we get the EVP. I'm smiling. Now, you have a medium telling you that she's there, and then you ask a question and you get an answer. She said something else too later on when I was still trying to talk with her. They said, well, she's not here because there was a dark entity in the house and she didn't care for it. So she was back in the back of the house hiding. Well, I had recorders all over. And when they said that, the recorder picks up her saying, "Hiding." So, I mean, when you're getting interaction like that, is that paranormal then?
I like to see it in patterns of 3 than just 2. So, I mean, if you got that EVP and you had the medium saying something, and then you took the photograph and there was something there.
Well, I didn't get nothing on a photograph.
I'm not torso apparition standing there, but because the hiding part of it could be a projection from the medium. The medium could be thinking it, and she can affect the equipment as well. So you got to be careful about that sort of thing. And Loyd turned me onto that, and I never really thought much about it either. But yeah, PK wise, a medium could project that, and it could end up on the equipment that way. But if you have a third thing, like you have the medium, you have the audio, you have the camera, you have the medium, you have the audio, you have a video. Yeah, that kind of narrows down the
I only took
culprits of.
I only took 1 or 2 pictures, but there was nothing on the pictures. So.
Oh, bummer. Well, that trifecta is hard to get.
Yeah.
It really is hard to get. But yeah, you just have to keep that in the back of your mind that the living can impact equipment.
Yeah.
So
and I'm also wondering, because you're talking about the IR camera and how much more beneficial it would be in paranormal investigation than just a standard camera is. And I believe that.
Yeah, it can be. You're seeing a different spectrum that the eye can't see.
Right.
So you got a piece of equipment that's able to see a spectrum of light that we can't see, and the full spectrum camera too. And I've asked Andy about that. I said, it's nice that you have this full spectrum camera that sees all the way from ultraviolet through visible light to IR, but have you been able to develop a camera that just sees UV? And he says, oh, I've never tried that. I said, that would rule a lot of other things out too, as to what frequency is this entity appearing in. Because he's had some interesting stuff come out of his camera where things will look like a shadow of a person. You can make out the clothing and everything. It's obviously somebody wearing clothes from a different time sitting there. But then he'll have other pictures that he'll take with the camera that are bright flashes of this violet color. And that's obviously in a different part of the spectrum than this other. So I said, could this darker energy be more earthbound, type, person, and then the UV flash probably from a higher register being from higher realms or more evolved state? He goes, I don't know. I've just never really tried that. So it's kind of frustrating to see some of this new technology being carried so willy-nilly into the field that nobody's really bothering to scientifically, investigate with it. They just kind of see what they're doing on TV with it, and that's about as far as they take it. But those are just the questions as a researcher I ask. Nobody else is kind of liking and caring about that.
Well, now, you sent us an article about paranormal has increased during the COVID lockdown. Did you read all of it? What was some of the most interesting stories that was in there?
Well, as we were talked about before break, one of them was actually talking about how that she realized the activity was there and she was making friends with it. And it actually gave her peace. It didn't scare her. It gave her peace. And then sometimes there would be people that were staying at a vacation home. They got away. And they were staying at an Airbnb somewhere. And they had an experience, but because they'd never had an experience before, they couldn't tell whether what they saw was a residual or something interactive. Because it was there and then it was gone. But that's just it when you're dealing with these people that have never had an experience before, not, really thinking to ask those questions. But those are. I like the one where the lady was actually making friends with the entity in the apartment. That was pretty cool. She felt less lonely that way. And I'm like, well, good for you. I'm sure the entity felt less lonely too.
Well, it's an interesting coping mechanism, and probably a lot healthier one to be able to get along with something that's there, instead of, again, going back to Sports Ed channel, that everything is that goes bump in the night is demonic. And it could just be, hey, it's just a roommate you didn't know you had.
Yeah, right. And it's probably been there all that time. It's just waiting for you to pay attention to it.
They're really behind in their rent.
That's right.
Yeah, if you could only get them to pay rent, it would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rent in New York is not anything to sneeze at. Jeez.
Well, the house that we lived in.
Of course, there was the one about the two roommates that had the apartment, and they heard the footsteps upstairs, and they suddenly realized, oh, that's right, that apartment's vacant.
Huh.
Where are those footsteps coming from? They actually had enough time to actually pay attention to the sounds going on around them and going, oh,
well,
okay.
Do you think that's the way it is now or has been with people actually locked down and not going places? They're paying more
I think they're
attention?
definitely aware of the sounds around them than they were before. I believe that when you're going through the rigors of the regular life, having to grab that cup of coffee and grab that bagel and run out the door, and you hear something and you just kind of dismiss it and you're on your way, and then you come back at 4:30, then you're grabbing your coat and you're out to the bar, or you're always go. You don't pay attention to that stuff, but it's kind of like all the cat memes we see on Facebook. I really like the one where the person's got the chalk in her hand and she's marked off like 29 days in quarantine, and the cat's looking up at her saying, "I lost track." It's like cat's always been that way, so it's no big deal to her.
Yeah, I'm sure that the pets are probably hollering, I'm ready for these people to go back to work.
Oh, that's right. Don't you have some place to be? The first week I was here, I was like, I swear that's what the cats were doing. They were looking at me like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be gone.
But it's going to be interesting when these attractions that are primarily paranormal investigation based, places like Waverly Hills, where there hasn't been any attendance whatsoever. I don't know if you'd expect it to die down because there's less energy there for them to feed off of, or it's going to be absolutely massive because, hey, we can finally come out and play.
Yeah, well, that's true. Or that, or they might get agitated that you come back. It's like, we finally had the place to ourselves. Now you come back with the stick again. Great.
I just how it ticked off. I thought we got rid of these people. Now they're back. It's going to be interesting to see what happens once these investigations start up again.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like going to these locations with the mindset that I am a guest there, and I'd like to find a way to interact with them in a positive manner. I know when I went to Ashmore Estates in Mattoon, Illinois, I went there a couple of times. I went there with my recorder, and I picked out period-style dance music that they would dance to, that they might have parties to. And I would play that. And we had some situations where the music on my phone would rapidly change. It would scroll through my playlist and start picking out its own music because it was a new toy. It's something they hadn't seen before. Wow. That was really fascinating to see.
Absolutely.
I got another question from the chat room. It's from Tabby Cat. And she wants to know, what is your take on psychometry? And she said her reason for asking is because while you were together in Gettysburg, she had no idea that a building had been rebuilt, yet she sensed that the rocks were all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a very real thing. Everything, if you look at quantum physics, everything vibrates at a frequency. Everything, even the rocks. So the fact that a psychic might be able to pick up on that vibration, sure. And I've got some good friends of mine that are, and a lot of people that have psychic ability sometimes have more than one ability. They might be a clairvoyant and a medium. They might be a clairvoyant and a psychometric reader and something else. So yeah, it's not uncommon for somebody to have more than one ability or to pick up energy in different ways.
So since you've been
to that effect, it's interesting if you have an object which vibrates on a certain frequency and it comes into contact with something else in your house that operates off of a different frequency and they're not compatible, that could also cause a lot of disjointedness in the house, wouldn't you think?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, that's why we see a lot of times that the televisions will sometimes go wonky, or the radios might act out, or the lights might act up. It's the energy field of the entity. They may not even be doing it intentionally. They may just their field might be coming into contact with something else, causing a distortion. And
I often wonder. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, I often wonder if that's what people bringing home antiques might find, is that it has a completely different vibration. They might think, oh, this antique has an attachment to it, when in fact it's just been in the possession of somebody who had a different vibration than you, and it simply just doesn't quite work in your house.
Oh, they might be able. Yeah, they might have psychometric ability and not even know it. And this is the first time they've come into contact with something with a strong energy field. And they're like, oh, this is haunted or whatever it is. In actuality, they're just picking up on that energy for the first time because they can. So that's what I find out with a lot of people that are mediums, is that they don't know they're a medium until the ghost tells them they are.
Congratulations, here's your certificate.
So
yeah,
since being quarantined, have you noticed any activity in your house?
I've had some come and go. I tend to keep a fairly, well, quote unquote, clean house. I have my boundaries set up, and I have entities that I work with me to make sure that the stuff stays out. But on occasion, when emotions get high, and over the last couple of weeks, we've seen it globally get high. Sometimes you attract attention. And you might need some help clearing it out, or you might have to set your boundaries again and tell it to get out. But yeah, you're in a very intense, emotional, passionate energy right now. Whether it's with the quarantine or the social government upheaval, or worries about the super volcano blowing up, or the murder hornets, or like you pick your poison. If you have entities out there that are going to feed off of anxiety, this is a prime hunting environment for them.